Okay, so this is the explanation of the oxygen binding curve. And this is basically describing when you breathe in air, it goes from oxygen to your lungs to CO2, and then you breathe out. And on our y-axis is hemoglobin saturated, SaO2. And then on our x-axis is partial pressure of O2 in arterial blood. So at the tissue, oxygen leaves the blood and the hemoglobin enters the cell. So during that time, your SaO2 and your PaO2 is at a low level. At the lung, which I meant to write over here, which is going to the lung, the oxygenated blood leaves the alveoli and jumps on the hemoglobin. And this is basically when the oxygen binds. During this time, the SaO2 and the PaO2 is at, an increased level. When you shift to the right, down here, you decrease your y-axis. You decrease the y-axis, the SaO2, which means there is less oxygen on the hemoglobin. Oxygen must be in the tissue. Shifting to the right, there's a release of oxygen from the hemoglobin tissue. And then when you shift to the left, up here, when you shift to the left, you decrease at the y-axis the SaO2, which means there is oxygen on the hemoglobin. Oxygen must be away from the tissue. Shifting to the left decreases the release of oxygen from the hemoglobin to the tissue. So basically, within this, explaining this, I learned that when you shift to the left, you're basically leaving the tissue. You left the tissue behind. Well, basically, you're leaving the tissue behind, and shifting to the right is oxygen is being given to the tissue. During the time that the tissue is shifting to the left, there's a decrease in the H bond and increase in the pH. There's a decrease in the temperature, decrease in altitude. And when you're shifting to the right, there's an increase in the H bond. There's an increase in the temperature and an increase in the altitude. So once again, the way I really, the way I understand this whole entire art right here is that when you shift to the left, the tissue is being left behind. And then when you shift to the right, the oxygen is being given to the tissue. And this is explaining the oxygen binding curve. Thank you for listening.